Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. So in today's video we will be discussing the top 5 most glazed animals. So these animals are more glazed than donuts, to be honest, and this would primarily include animals that either have combative prowess that often are claimed but not backed up by any sort of feats, or their combative prowess, or whatever feats they have in terms of combative prowess, is grossly over exaggerated. So, with that out of the way, the mechanics will be that we will go from bottoms up. So, it will go from 5 to 1, and this will primarily include modern day animals, so animals that are still alive today. I will in future make a list on prehistoric animals that I think are overrated in terms of their combative prowess. Let me know if I should focus primarily in any time period, but without further ado, let's get into it. So our first animal is bears, more specifically polar bears. The myth is that this largest land carnivore is this muscle-packed hunk, which is, pound for pound, one of the strongest animals. It's not, okay? It is the fattest animal on land, just not the largest. It's largest, yes, but that's not because of muscle, that's because of fat. At least 50% of their body weight is just fat. When it's like bigger bears, the percentage goes even higher, sometimes going up to 60% of their weight being just fat. These are fat packed animals. Now, granted, not all bears are as fat packed, but polar bears in specific are the most fat packed, due to which they are extremely sluggish, they are extremely weak pound for pound, and they are seriously just abysmal when it comes to taking down prey animals. Like, people often put these animals against certain animals that they have no business fighting. Like, honestly, look at the polar bear. People will put it against gores, people will put it against hippos, people will even put it against saltwater crocodiles. Honestly, what do you think this polar bear is gonna do? Remember, this is some of the largest polar bears, by the way. Most polar bears won't be this big. Even then, look at the size difference between these guys. And remember, polar bears are not built like big cats, where they are muscle packed and they can take on animals much bigger than themselves. Now, I'm not saying that the big cats can take on saltwater crocodiles or hippos, but they can take on animals much bigger than themselves. Polar bears are not like that. I have said it in my previous videos, and I will say it again. Bears are not scaled up tigers. Just because you have seen tigers or lions take down prey bigger than themselves doesn't mean a bear can do the same. Bears are actually pretty bad at killing other animals. The largest prey animals that polar bears can hunt are about this size, which is a bearded seal. Sometimes they do hunt belugas, but usually that is juveniles. And to be honest, belugas are not really an impressive prey animal. They are practically defenseless. They don't have any way to defend themselves. They have a soft, squishy head, and literally they don't have strong bites, nor do they have any claws, hooves, or armor. They're not a strong prey animal. So again, the feat of polar bears killing belugas to be used to justify them, killing bovines like gores, Cape buffalo, or even bigger animals like hippos or rhinos, or even more dangerous animals like saltwater crocodiles, is just straight bonkers. Like, these animals would practically one shot a polar bear. Okay, with that out of the way, let's look at our next animal. Okay, I will be honest here. This animal used to be extremely glazed, but it got reduced quite a bit. I haven't seen someone glazing this for a few years at least. But this used to be the most glazed animal of all time. This used to be. But now it has reduced. And what am I talking about? Anacondas. Or in general, any large constrictor snakes like reticulated pythons, Burmese pythons, etc. So, the first and foremost thing I would like to point out is the size difference. You can see a decent size comparison here. This is some of the largest end of the snakes, like how big they can get, versus this is a tiger, this is a jaguar, and this is a saltwater crocodile. Immediately you can notice something is that while the snake is very long, these things are much wider, especially the crocodile. It's way too wide. And the myth is that they could constrict around these animals and kill them. In reality, these animals are far too agile. They have far more damaging attacks, like their bites can do way more damage than the snake can ever dish out with its own bite. And secondly, they are either far too big. For example, like the crocodilians, they are way too big in comparison, or the cats, they're way too nimble, and they have other weapons like claws which they can use to essentially free themselves from the coils and deliver devastating counterattacks. For example, here you can see the crocodile is crushing an anaconda with its powerful jaws, as well as the tiger is piercing the spine of this python, and the jaguar is biting down on the spine of this anaconda. So that's the fourth most glazed animal in my opinion. What is the third one? Third one is a big cat, the jaguar itself. While it will be very powerful animal, it is a very powerful animal, and it will be a great combatant against large constrictors. 1 feet of jaguars is extremely exaggerated, and that is their bone crushing bites being able to take down large crocodilians. Now, granted, jaguars do take down certain crocodilians. For example, spectacled caiman, Yakura caiman, yellow caiman, dwarf caiman, Cuvier's caiman, etc., are often taken down by jaguars. And the younger individuals of the species black caiman is sometimes hunted by jaguars, but it has absolutely no chance at beating some of the larger crocodilians, like, let's say, saltwater crocodiles, or Orinoco crocodiles, or black caimans, or Nile crocodiles. And you can see a size comparison here. This is the size of crocodilians that jaguars usually kill. They are either the same length as the jaguar or slightly longer. On the other hand, this is the size of the biggest crocodilians. You can see how insane the size difference is, by the way. Like, these larger crocodilians, the largest individuals, are so big, some of them can swallow a jaguar whole. And even if, let's say, somehow the jaguar managed to not get grabbed in these snare traps of death, the the hide of these animals are so thick that the jaguar's canines, even if they pierce, won't reach anything vital. Like, for example, in this case, the jaguar's canines are big enough to essentially puncture the skull and reach the brain. Here, it won't even be able to puncture the skin completely before running out of length, because the skin is thicker than the jaguar's canines are long. Not to mention, the osteoderms are a great place to break your teeth. So that's the third most glazed animal. The second most glazed animal, and it is a recent one by the way, is the hyena. And people think because this animal has a stronger bite force than felids, automatically this thing wins against most similar sized felids like pumas, leopards, as well as jaguars and snow leopards, which are close in size, though the snow leopard being the smallest and the jaguar being the largest. But they're still all very close in size. But at the same time, all of them, and I do mean all of them, will absolutely demolish a hyena in a fight. Okay? Like, first of all, look at the advantages they have. I agree that the hyenas have a bone crushing bite, but unless they grab one of the legs of the leopard, that bite is not gonna do anything. Biting on the flesh with a bone crushing bite is just pinching very hard. It will hurt the leopard, but it's not gonna do any damage. It will be painful, but won't inflict any damage. Not only this, there are other factors to consider. That the leopards are way more agile, and other than the bite, hyenas have no other weapons. Whereas leopards not only have their more damaging bites because they have these really long piercing canines which can, go further into the body of the hyena and essentially cause internal damage into vital areas, primarily on the throat because leopards like to choke them. Not only do they have this, they also have retractable razor sharp claws and powerful forelimbs. So in a fight, the leopard can literally slap the hyena's head away and bite the throat without any issue. This is why whenever they get into a confrontation in a 1v1, the leopard always destroys the hyena. If it's an adult leopard, it will absolutely destroy a hyena. This is why hyenas need packs, by the way. They need a pack of like 4 or 5 members to just intimidate one large leopard. Not to mention, in a 1v1, there are instances where leopards have killed hyenas, and not only have they killed hyenas, they have dragged their kills up the tree. So again, hyenas are not really these overpowered T-Rex mammals that people often claim them to be. Their canines are short, stubby, and another thing, their bites are bone crushing. That's optimized for dead animals. Okay, that there's a bone, they need to bite with the posterior part of their jaws and chew on it to break the bone. It's not like it could just bite the leg and break it instantly. That's not how their bites work. They need to chew on the bones for a while to break it. So to assume that a hyena would bite a leopard on the leg and break it instantly is just pure fantasy. That's not how bites work in general. Now, before revealing the number 1 most glazed animals, I would like to go over some honorable mentions. These are animals that almost made it to the list, and I would go over quickly on why these animals are glazed in which situations. Firstly, big cats. Now, big cats have some amazing feats, okay? There is no doubts about that. In terms of their feats, they are the best. They have killed animals much bigger than themselves. They have killed animals far more armored than themselves. They have killed animals, far much faster than them. However, I have to clarify something here, is that just because a big cat would win most confrontations against an animal doesn't mean it would win all the confrontations against that animal. It's not an invincible creature. I have a whole video where I discuss which are the weaknesses of big cats. They are not invincible. They can sometimes lose. Now, it's fine if you think that they would win against a certain animal. Well, let's say most of the times. They will. Against other land carnivores, they will win most of the times. But to say that they would win every single time is just a lie. They will sometimes lose in some of the confrontations. In my previous videos, I have seen people thinking that, after watching that video, people have thought that I'm saying that big cats would win every single confrontations with certain other predators, which is not what I'm claiming. I am claiming that they would win most confrontations. So don't glaze big cats like that. They don't win every single confrontation, but they will win most confrontations. So again, at the same time, just because a big cat has hunted something doesn't mean it can kill that thing always. Again, doesn't mean it will be a guaranteed kill in a fight. Now, which animals am I talking about? Elephants and rhinos. Yes, there are instances of big cats killing elephants. There are instances of big cats killing rhinos. However, in a fight, they cannot do that. And the reason for that is that in order to kill these really large animals, a lot of things have to go right for the big cat. It's very situational how they hunt these things. It's very ultra specific scenarios where these big cats can hunt them. So it's not like in a fight a big cat would defeat an elephant or anything similar sized. So I hope that's out of the way. Next, glazed animal. This one almost made it to the number one, but because aquatic debates aren't as common as land-based debates, so it's not as glazed. But among aquatic animals, this is definitely at least number one, or at the very least number two most glazed animal, and that is the giant squid or the colossal squid. Okay, people seem to think because they fight back against giant sperm whales, they actually have a fighting chance, which is just plain bonkers. There haven't been a single instance of these giant squids ever killing a sperm whale that is fully grown, or even a small one at least, because there is a massive size difference. These things don't grow over, I think, 1,000 kilograms. The biggest one is the colossal squid, which is bigger than the giant squid, like heavier than the giant squid, but not as long. And that is like, I think the record breaking one was like 1,000 kilograms. More average ones are like 500 kilograms. Meanwhile, sperm whales can grow up to 60 tons. There is a 1 to 60 ratio. And again, this is not a case of an animal that is very much equipped to kill animals much larger than themselves. For example, let's say sharks. Sharks can on occasions kill animals bigger than themselves by bleeding them out. That's not what this thing is. Giant squids can possibly kill some smaller species of sharks, but in a fight against large crocodilians or against large sharks, this thing has absolutely no chance of winning, let alone against larger cetaceans like, let's say, sperm whales or orcas or whatever. This thing will get chewed up. Remember, this thing is completely defenseless. There is zero defense. It has like a really thin, really slimy, soft skin, which can be bitten in half by pretty much any predator. So again, any substantial sized predator like saltwater crocodiles or great white sharks, maybe even like larger tiger sharks, as well as orcas, false killer whales will absolutely demolish these things in a direct confrontation. Okay, next up is the Kangal dog or the gripper dogs. Now I have spoke about dogs versus cats in one of my previous videos where I discussed about four most unfair fights. Here is I am talking about it again because people somehow think that gripper dogs have a sudden advantage. They don't. Okay, it's like similar situation to the hyena versus the big cat, but it's much worse. Okay, like any bear or a big cat would absolutely maul any similar sized dog. Like it's not even a close competition. Okay, because they have the usage of front limbs, they can simply grab the head of this dog, move it aside, and start biting on the throat. And at that point, the dog cannot do anything to fight back. Like there's a reason why these dogs, when they're used as guard dogs, people put like really big thorned collars on these creatures. because otherwise these predators will immediately bite the throat and rip chunks out and kill this dog. So again, gripper dogs are one of the most overrated animals. I almost made this one as number one most overrated animal, but again, you will see which the number one is. Next up is the liger, okay? And I think this is what we can call a Jurassic Park effect, where people think that hybrids in real life will be extremely overpowered like the hybrids in the movies. In reality, ligers are not good combatants. They are always having like a dozen of health issue that can range from, bone marrow depletion, as well as hip joint pain, to straight up cancer like lung cancer as well. So this is a disease ridden, deformed, genetically disabled animal. This is not a super hybrid. Now granted, if someone was to use the lions and tigers genes and use like modern day genetic splicing to maybe create a hybrid, that could potentially be super hybrid that can have unbelievable levels of combative prowess. Ligers are not that, okay? In nature, ligers never exist because lions and tigers don't live in the same place. Now, some people might say, oh, but in India there are lions and tigers. Yes, there are, but they don't live in the same place in India. Tigers live quite far away from lions. Lions usually live in open plains. Tigers live in the wild. In the wild, they will never mate. They will simply avoid each other and go their separate ways. By the way, all of these points apply to the Tigon as well, but to a lesser extent. When I say lesser extent, I mean like the whole sluggishness, because ligers are kind of like bears. They are very sluggish. They don't have any of the agility of the big cats. They're extremely sluggish animals that cannot even jump. Again, it's a cat that can't jump very well. On the other hand, every single cat has amazing jumping abilities. This one can't. That's how you know there's something wrong with this thing. And again, they don't live very long. They have constant asthma. So again, stop glazing this thing and saying that, oh, this thing beats the parent species like lions and tigers. No, in a fight this thing gets absolutely mauled, because again, this is not a good combatant. Not because it didn't live in the wild. Even if you raise the liger somehow in the wild, it won't be a good combatant because it's genetically deformed. I hope that clears it up. Okay, some more honorable mentions. Brown bears, okay? And similar to the big cats, brown bears have the same problem. I agree if you say that a brown bear might win a certain percentage of encounters, but to say that brown bears would win against certain other predators every single time, especially when they're so comparable in size and sometimes have some stats which are better than brown bears, it's just bonkers to say that, oh yeah, brown bears are invincible. Similar to, the polar bears, people also put brown bears against creatures that they have no business fighting with. So yeah, stop glazing brown bears, okay? They are not that overpowered. They are a powerful animal, but they are not good at hunting other animals. They are good at fighting other bears. Next one, recently I have seen this thing glazed so much, I almost made it my number 3. But this animal has been glazed quite a bit, and that is the elephant seal. Okay? Like, on land, an elephant seal loses to every single large herbivore except maybe the giraffe. I would say even the giraffe would probably kill this thing. On land, this thing has bad land movement speed. This thing can barely turn on land. So any animal like a buffalo, a gaur, a bison, or any of the animals with the big horns will just simply go to the side and gore this thing to death, where it will eventually bleed out. Usually elephant seals have more blood than usual, but if you get gored, you will eventually lose enough blood to die. And in the water, their primary attack is body slam, by the way. That's how they defend themselves. They essentially slam their massive weights onto other animals. Against something like a rhino, that is a suicide, okay? That's a suicide. Like, the rhino wants this thing to essentially slam itself on the horns, because that will simply make the rhino's job easier. It will simply have the horn impale through this thing and just have it, impale some vital organs and have this thing killed. On the other hand, the hippos will cause even more damage because they can bite and run fast. So the hippo can go behind this thing, start biting the hindquarters, cause these gaping wounds, while this walrus, not walrus, sorry, the elephant seal is practically helpless on land because it can barely move. Now, in the water, the situation might be a little bit better, but again, they don't have very powerful attacks in the water either. They cannot body slam anymore in the water. They cannot ram like many dolphins, and their bites don't do a lot of damage. So to say that this thing beats something like a hippo is, or a rhino, or an elephant, or any of the large bovids, even a giraffe is agile enough to like move out of the way of its very telegraphed body slam and just kick it on the head until the skull cracks. Now, granted, it has a tough skull, but if it gets kicked repeatedly, eventually it will be either get concussed, or it will not be able to defeat the giraffe, so it ends up in a tie. On the other hand, the other animals I mentioned can definitely do enough damage to this creature to kill it rather easily on land. So I don't want to see any more posts of people putting this thing against African elephants. Okay, now next up is a pretty common one, the honey badger. Just because lions and leopards refuse to fight this thing doesn't mean they can't kill it. Both lions and leopards have killed honey badgers, okay? It's just that it's too much effort to kill that thing and too little reward, because again, badger meat is not particularly tasty and it smells disgusting. So that's why most of the times the big predators just simply avoid it and go away, because it's not worth it. Not because they can't kill it, because it's not worth it. Another thing, I think this will be more applicable for people who are designing hybrids. Scaling up a honey badger loses a lot of its you can say advantages. It is very powerful because it's small. If you scale it up to, let's say, the size of a black bear, it will no longer have the advantage from the saggy skin, because then all of the saggy skin will sag and essentially be like a dewlap under its throat. That would not protect it from bites, because again, it's sagged and the rest of it stretched over the rest of the body, and it's saggy only at the underside. So anything biting from the top will have access to the spine, the side of the throat, and the saggy skin works because it's small. So the sag doesn't, completely have it hanging underneath the animal. And finally, the final honorable mention is the orca. Now, granted, in the current ocean, they are undisputed champions, okay? A single orca can kill every other predator in the ocean. Not every other animal. There are people who legitimately think, though not every predator, a bull sperm whale will destroy an orca, but anything else, yes, the orca can kill. But to say that just because a pod of orcas have killed a blue whale, a singular orca can do it, or an orca can, take on a bull sperm whale, or even an adult sperm whale by itself, is just plain bonkers. Same goes with many of the prehistoric animals like Deinosuchus, as well as Mosasaurus, Pliosaurus. All of these animals will absolutely demolish an orca, because remember, all of these animals had really good defenses, especially Deinosuchus. It had really big scutes to defend itself. On the other hand, orcas have really soft skin. They don't have any form of defenses. So while the orca's bite will not do much against these creatures, these other massive creatures biting them, or, I'm talking about like the reptilian ones here, the reptilian ones biting the orca would cause it to lose large chunks of flesh and eventually bleed to death because it's a mammal, and mammals bleed a lot because they have warm blood and high metabolism, and because they move so much, it will simply bleed to death with a chunk missing from its body. To be honest, if a reptile had a chunk missing from its body, it will also bleed to death, but because these reptiles are better armored, it will be smaller of a chunk, so they won't probably bleed to death in a fight. And against like something like a bull sperm whale, it's just not fair, okay? A bull sperm whale ramming into an orca would immediately break its spine. It will crush its internal organs and simply, knock the wind out of its lungs. So again, stop glazing orcas. Now, finally, I'm going to reveal the most overglazed animal, and that is gorillas. Okay, like this is an animal that has been glazed so much, it's insane. Other animals have mostly been glazed in, you know primarily in like community posts or YouTube videos and stuff like that. Okay, this animal has been glazed so much it's even made it into movies somewhat. Like there are scenes in movies where gorillas beat certain opponents they have no business beating. And the reason for this overglazing, I believe, is movies where they portray this thing is as, the super strong, hyper aggressive fighter that can fight like an MMA champion and has like 8-pack abs and can punch things. Like it can punch a bear's jaw off, or it can break the spine of a tiger, or that's what they have portrayed this thing. In reality, they are none of this, okay? In reality, they are terrible at fighting. Firstly, okay, gorillas have thin skin. Gorillas, being a primate, has similar skin to humans, which is really, really thin. Primates have some of the thinnest skin, and that's because they need to feel a lot more with their skin. Essentially, their palms and all, they have really thin skin, and their overall skin isn't thick. And another thing is, not only this skin is very thin, it's very stretched. Unlike, let's say, a bear, a cat, or a dog, their skins are not as stretched. Their skins are very loose, and if you have a dog or a cat, you can bunch up their skins without hurting them. If you did that to a primate, it would tear its skin apart because of how tight the skin is. Due to this, gorillas have terrible defenses against like especially sharp objects like teeth and claws. It will leave like massive gashing wounds which will bleed the animal to death. On the other hand, the animals that gorillas are often pitted against, like bears for example, have amazing defense. Not only are bears really big, they have a thick coat of fur, they have a thick skin, and underneath that they have a layer of fat. So they're like really well defended. Gorillas' punches would not do anything to these large apex predators. Like, they handle way worse on a regular basis. Their skulls and their overall body handles way more punishment on a regular basis than what a gorilla can dish out. Like, a gorilla can try to punch as hard as it wants on the skull of a grizzly or a tiger or a lion. It's not gonna do much damage, unlike what people think. People think, oh, they will like completely break the jaw. No, that doesn't happen. First of all, gorillas can't punch like a human. Gorillas can't punch like a human. They essentially, you can say, jab with their arms, and due to this, they don't land punches properly, and again, their punches, while strong, are a bit overrated. Like, they don't even dislocate each other's jaws. Another quick fact, gorillas are much smaller than at least three of them. So it's way smaller than the bear, it's a lot smaller than the tigers. Like, the largest tigers are a good bit bigger than the largest gorillas, and same with lions. The largest lions are also a decent bit bigger than the gorillas. Now, granted, the leopard's a bit smaller, but I will get to why the leopard has advantage in this case. But without even the size advantage, the leopards have claws and teeth and agility as well. Gorillas are not aggressive nor are they agile. They're not accustomed to fighting. They are very docile, calm animals, mostly peaceful animals that are herbivores and mostly avoid conflicts. Leopards have these really long canines. Also, gorilla canines, by the way. People often say, oh, gorillas have this really strong bite force. Yes, their canines are terrible for biting other animals. Their canines are stubs, essentially. They are not sharp. They are little stubs, which is useful to chew tough plant fibers and, chew up bamboo, but it's not useful in a combat against a very agile animal. If a gorilla bites, let's say, a leopard, it will be similar to a bear's bone-crushing bite or a hyena's bone-crushing bite, but much worse. Because where hyenas or bears have small teeth, which are somewhat penetrative, gorilla teeth cannot penetrate at all. Okay, their teeth are not like baboons, where it's long and pointy. Their teeth are small and stubby, and their teeth can't penetrate much at all. So it will just be pinching the leopard really hard. On the other hand, the leopards have really long fangs, which can easily get into the throat of the gorilla once the leopard bites down. That's actually how they hunt gorillas. And, once that happens, it will simply choke this creature to death. Similarly, people mention that striking power, gorillas can punch. I already debunked why that won't do much damage. Again, like these animals, like lions, tigers, and bears, they have skulls thick enough to withstand low caliber bullets. Like they can survive handgun bullets, like Glock 17 bullets or something like that. They can survive those, 9mm, they can survive those. Directly hit on their skull. That's how tough their skulls are. Gorilla punches are not more powerful than a bullet, okay? Otherwise they will be punching through each other like, Viltrumites or something. But that's not the case. The animal that does have really powerful swings are the big cats. Their arms are so muscle dense and has so much kinetic energy in each strike, it is very much equivalent to essentially shatter the ribs of the gorilla, maybe dislocate a jaw or break the spine if it hits on the back. So yeah, that is completely a possibility because one, the big cat is much bigger, like in this case, the lions and tigers are much bigger, and secondly, they are way more muscle packed. Like gorillas have a decent bit of fat themselves, but big cats have very little fat in their body. Mostly it's muscle, and it's fast twitch muscle, which means their paws move much quicker, which means greater amount of kinetic energy. I also explained why that is in another video. Go check it out if you want to. But that moves a lot quicker, which means there is a lot more kinetic energy, because kinetic energy depends more on the velocity than the mass, and due to that, more damage is inflicted in their paw strikes. Not like already the claws were bad enough because they would tear open a gorilla. The simple striking force is enough to like crack ribs, break spine, or dislocate jaw of a gorilla. And finally, the aggression. Like Hollywood always depict gorillas in this, super aggressive nature where they're ready to fight all the time. Most of the times it's a goofy ape. Okay, it's the goofiest of all apes. It's not combative, it's not aggressive. It's mostly a passive animal that wants to avoid conflict. So in a fight, it's not gonna pull out, jujutsu moves or something. What will happen in a fight, if it sees a large predator like a tiger charging towards it, the gorilla will try to run away. Simply put, it will simply try to run away. It is not built for that kind of life. On the other hand, tigers or leopards and lions, they regularly hunt creatures that are bigger than themselves, and they are predators. So they are kind of, born into that sort of life. Not to say a herbivore cannot be like that. There are absolutely aggressive herbivores which would rather fight back than run away, but gorillas simply are not one of them. Gorillas are not like buffaloes where they can, rally against them, or they can fight back even in a 1v1 situation. The gorillas are simply way too passive, way too timid of a creature that they will simply run away after hearing just one roar from these big cats or a bear. Like simply seeing a bear tower over a gorilla or seeing one of these big cats just charging at it, roaring, will be enough to essentially freeze up the gorilla out of fear. So there you have it, the 5 most glazed animals. Now I will launch a poll asking you guys what my next video will be. Another disclaimer, I might not be able to upload next week due to some personal business, or the next to next week, like this month. I may or may not be able to, so I cannot make promises, at least for this month. But if I am able to, I will absolutely upload a video. More chances are that I will, but fingers crossed, okay? I'm sorry guys, it's a personal emergency that I have to take care of. But either way, thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, like, share, subscribe, and